about the cost of dissent, and there are 5 basic strategies that this administration has used to silence people, to shut them up, to discredit them, to gag them, if you will. And the first one I identify as, they've lost their mind. They're crazy. If you look at Scott McClellan in his new book, that's not the Scotty we knew. I mean, he's just out to lunch, right? The second one, it's a profit motive. And this one really cracks me up as you look at Paul O'Neill. Multi-millionaire several times over, previous president of Alcoa, one of the largest corporations in the world, tapped by Greenspan to be the Secretary of Treasury, and he is horrified by what this administration is planning to do, cut taxes, go to war. He blows the whistle, or attempts to, they fire him, and they say, well, he wrote the book because he wanted to earn an extra buck, which is ludicrous. The third one is what I call out of the loop, Richard Clarke. Richard Clarke, who was the czar on terrorism, who tried repeatedly to talk about al-Qaeda, to talk about the threats that could have been prevented on 9/11 had this administration been awake and at the wheel. I say they were asleep at the wheel. It would never have happened. I absolutely believe that if Al Gore had been president, 9/11 would never have occurred. We would have had our systems in place and we would have been awake and alert. But we had gone to sleep on that point. So the way they discredited Richard Clarke is he wasn't really in the loop. She was an overglorified secretary. The fourth is attack their patriotism, like Joe Wilson. Anybody that stands up against this administration. I think of poor Natalie Maines from the Dixie Chicks. I mean, a non-political person who says, I'm ashamed that this president who's going to attack a nation on the eve of 9/11 is suddenly, burn the Dixie Chicks, get rid of their tapes, their CDs. And it's the fifth is, you're in cahoots with the terrorism. I mean, it goes even further, that you're abating and aiding terrorism by questioning. It's the how dare you mentality. And I think your family's been threatened on 3 different levels. And I wonder, when you've been in these multiple interviews with all of these media sources, and they use these tactics successfully over and over again, why doesn't the media say, I see the Bush administration is using tactic number 2 to discredit this critic? And they are saying that they've just lost their mind, or they're doing it for a profit motive. What's going on?
The best way I can understand it is that this administration has been very, very good at intimidation. When you don't like what a correspondent has said or written, maybe a question, and the producer in no time at all gets a phone call from the White House saying, you ask that kind of question again, and you will lose your White House pass, or you will not be allowed on Air Force One. That immediately puts a crimp on on how you're going to report things. And of course, there's been the consolidation of the communications, all the media, and they are now not seen as public service, if they ever were, but even the more emphasis, of course, is on the profit center. So that alters it as well. I believe absolutely that the media is just as culpable as we, the public, are for not seeking out as many sources of information as we can, but in bringing us to where we are. It seems that we're awash in information on celebrities and very, very thin on real substantive issues and hard investigative.
Absolutely. I say that we have come to a place, I mean, this is why we have this program. We have tabloid news has taken the place of real information that helps Americans make important decisions, political decisions about what we're going to do, how we're spending our money.